Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of In the Corner. I'm Cash, and we've got a really fun episode planned ahead. A lot of breaking news going around in boxing specifically. Some big UFC news just dropped as well. We're going to head into all of it. We got Tyson Fury news. We got a huge card ring for November. The return of David Benavidez just announced for that as well. Abdullah Mason versus Sean Noakes. The UFC is going to be at the White House. We've got Jack Catterall, Harlem Eubank this weekend. So much stuff to get into. Let's do it. So, kicking off the episode, we're going to talk about the Tyson Fury news. Turki Al-Sheikh has confirmed a 2026 return for Tyson Fury. Said that he promised him he's going to come back. Tyson Fury has been saying he only wants Usyk. That's what he's been saying. He was at the IBA event this weekend, or this week, I should say. And the only thing he was saying is, look, I'll come back for Usyk. That's it. That's the only fight I want. And he posted and said that April 18th at Wembley Stadium is going to be the trilogy, saying like contact so and so for tickets. So he's saying it like it's official. Like he is fighting Oleksandr Usyk April 18th at Wembley Stadium. Considering he's the only one to say this, I don't take it as true yet. So because Usyk has a very real fight ahead of him with Daniel Dubois in just a few weeks' time at Wembley. So I'm not gonna say yet if I believe it, but that looks like that has been discussed. It looks like it's been talked about as Fury or Usyk Fury 3 at Wembley Stadium, April 18th of next year. It's a far ways away. It's about, like 9-10 months away. So I'm a little bit surprised, but, this is how they do things over there. And, listen, I personally have no interest in a trilogy. I don't think that Fury was soundly beaten both times, but I think that he lost both fights, certainly. I think that Usyk definitely beat him the first fight, and I think that Usyk certainly beat him the second fight. There's no need for a third fight. There's no need. I understand why Fury wants it, and I understand why he doesn't want anything left from boxing except for he's only lost to one man, and he wants that revenge. I get it. That's every fighter. They all want to get their get back. He had the opportunity to, and he still came up short. But someone's got to tell him, but he thinks he won that second fight and the first fight. So he feels like he's been robbed. Not only has he come up short, but he doesn't think that he has. He thinks he's won both fights, even though he hasn't. He clearly hasn't. He feels like he still needs to get that get back. He doesn't have any interest in the Anthony Joshua fight. He says they ask him, "Look, are you gonna regret not fighting AJ?" And he's like, "No, not really," which is crazy to me. I mean, for somebody like Fury, who before maybe a year ago I would have said he only really wants the money. That's not the case anymore because the AJ fight is bigger. That's more money, but he wants the legacy. He does not want to, retire not having avenged his victory over Oleksandr Usyk. And I think that Usyk is going to do that fight. If I'm being honest, I remember the day of the Daniel Dubois presser, there was a lot of questions about Fury, and he was kind of talking some smack, saying like, yeah, we can do it a third time. I mean, Usyk's not going to turn down that money. He made... I don't even want to know how much he made for the Fury fights. So he'll certainly do another one, for his last fight. But I just have so much more interest in Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. I don't have a need to see Fury and Usyk fight again. If they do, I'll be excited. I'll watch it. There's just no point in it. I mean, when you look at Fury, the last time that he won a fight was against Francis Ngannou. Before that, it was in 2022 against Derek Chisora. He hasn't won a fight. By the time this fight rolls around, he won't have won a fight against a real contending boxer in 3.5 years. And he won't have fought for a year and a half. I don't understand how that warrants him a shot at potentially the Undisputed Championship. He should fight AJ. Plain and simple. But looks like Fury is going to come back. Nobody's surprised. We all knew that he was not going to stay retired. It did take longer than I thought it was going to. I thought it would just be like 2-3 months. It was 6. He was retired for 6 months. And he's back now, so not that crazy. He will not fight in 2025, but 2026, it'll happen. I just hope that something happens in the next year or so to take away that Usyk fight and make it Fury AJ, because, man, we need that one so bad. Okay, now let's talk about November. So last week, of course, we heard the announcement of Devin Haney, Brian Norman Jr., which is already the number 1, number 2 fight at welterweight. It's crazy because we just had Boot Stanionis a few months ago, and that was, the best fight in the division. Now, 7 months later, we have the best fight in the division with 2 completely different fighters. Obviously, Stanionis lost that fight in pretty bad fashion, and so he's fallen down the totem pole. Boots Ennis has moved up. Norman Jr. has had some great wins with his belt over the last year or so, and so now he's kind of pushing himself to be that number one guy. Devin Haney, he and Ryan Garcia were meant to fight. Ryan Garcia didn't look good at Times Square. Neither did Devin Haney, but Devin Haney won. So, I mean, I think that any weight class Devin Haney goes into, he's arguing to be the best guy there. I think he's so skilled. So him and Norman, I think, is the best fight in the welterweight division. We heard that fight. We know that's going to happen. That's going to be great. People are really, honestly, underestimating Haney in that fight, in my opinion. I think that he wins it, but I do think it's going to be a really competitive fight, and I can't wait for it. Now, we hear this morning the official announcement, David Benavidez will be returning in the same card against Anthony Yarde. Now, this is a little bit of a curveball. We were hearing that Benavidez and Callum Smith, were having positive discussions for a light heavyweight fight. That is no longer the case. They've chosen Yarde instead. This is not Benavidez ducking Smith. Apparently Smith, they couldn't find a number big enough that Smith was happy enough with. So that's very disappointing from Callum Smith, because I don't understand how much you want. This is a Riyadh season show, so you know they're going to pay him really good. I'm guessing that he wanted a lot more than how much he got to fight Joshua Buatsi. And he's looked at it and said, Benavidez is a much higher risk. I'm going to need a much higher reward. And they're like, we'll give you a higher reward, but not that much. And he didn't want to risk it. I think that's a poor choice. If you just want a world title shot, it's right there. He would have gotten it relatively easily with only one real fight after the Beterbiev loss. Granted, it was a fantastic performance against a great fighter. But, I think that this is a... I'm fine with this fight. I am. I would have much rather seen Benavidez versus Smith, because I do feel like that's the best fight to make outside of Bivol and Beterbiev. But Yarde is right there. I think he's 5 or 6 in the division. I just haven't been really impressed with him as of late. And this is going to be a fight that's going to be a lot of fun. These are two very heavy-hitting guys, two big guys in the weight class as well. So lots of leather is going to be thrown. It's going to be very exciting, and someone's going down, but I'll tell you who's going down, and it's not the Mexican Monster. I think that David Benavidez is a huge favorite in this fight, like huge. I think Anthony Yarde is decent. He's had his moments, but I don't know. I think every time he's stepped up, he's come up short, and David Benavidez is just a different animal right now. And I haven't seen much of anything from Yarde in his last 2 performances. He's actually looked really, really bad in both of them. So I think that Benavidez takes this fight inside the distance. Probably late round stoppage, but I'm cool with it. He has to defend the belt. I'm glad that he is in that time. I'm glad he's going to make his Riyadh season debut. And I wish he was Smith, but I'm okay with it being Yarde. I am curious what they do with Callum Smith now. He does have that WBO interim title. I don't really know if there's a lot else going on in that division. You've got all the other guys matching up. I mean, David Morrell, or there's a lot going on. I don't know if there's a lot else that's free. David Morrell is going to fight Imam Katayev. Bivol and Beterbiev are going to run it back. Michael Eifert just got ordered to fight Dimitri Bivol. Bivol will probably vacate that, and we'll probably see Eifert fight Connor Wallace instead. So there's not that much going on, that's like available for Callum Smith right now. If you look at the WBO rankings, I guess Albert Ramirez, and he probably is that other piece of that top 10 that doesn't have a big fight right now. So you could do that. I doubt that Smith takes that. Zach Parker is number 5. He may end up taking that fight. That is a very winnable fight for Callum Smith. A big UK fight as well. So we'll see what they end up doing. But it could be fun. We also hear on this card, just announced before I started recording this, Sam Noakes and Abdullah Mason will meet for the vacant WBO lightweight world title. We knew this fight was ordered. We knew that they'd headed to negotiations, hadn't heard much else. And then Turkey announces just now that, yep, it's official. They're going to fight for the vacant title on the same card. So I think that he's building another Last Crescendo card, honestly. I think this is a fantastic fight. And listen, we have never seen Abdullah Mason truly tested outside of the one fight, where he got dropped like twice early on. Outside of that, we haven't seen him fight a top-level opposition. Sam Noakes is legit. They've got similar records. Mason is 19-0 with 17 knockouts. Noakes is 17-0 with 15 knockouts. And Noakes has faced tougher opposition than Abdullah Mason is. I'm not saying that Abdullah Mason would not also beat everybody that Sam Noakes has fought. I'm just saying that Sam Noakes has been those rounds, and he's gotten in those tough fights, and he's fought much better opposition, in my opinion, than Abdullah Mason is. I think Mason is a favorite in this fight, but I think that Noakes is a very live dog. I think this is going to be a much different fight from Abdullah Mason, where he's going to fight someone who's going to come forward and who's going to give him everything he's got and who's going to have some power. And we know that Abdullah Mason has a little bit of a susceptible chin. So this is a very interesting fight. It's a great one, and it's building up to be part of a massive card. Now, let me remind you, just a few weeks ago, Turkey was asked what other fights he would like to put on this card in November before we had all these announced. He said he wanted to make Boots versus Virgil. That is a phenomenal fight. I don't think that one's going to happen, though. As Eddie Hearn just said, I think today, that they're looking to make Boots' 154 debut in September or October at the Wells Fargo Center in Philly, so he's not going to be on this card. Hopefully they can still get something for Virgil Ortiz. The Boachuk rematch is there and ready to go. That's a great one. He also said that he wanted William Zepeda versus Andy Cruz. I'm not really sure about that because Zepeda's about to fight Shakur. But aside from that, you could do Andy Cruz versus Raymond Murataya. We know that he's interested in that. That'd be a great fight for that. Great card for that fight to end up on. Christian and Billy versus Lester Martinez. He says he wants that. That's a tremendous fight at super middleweight. And Martin McCauley versus Moses Atama. Granted, Atama gets past Dillian White, which I think we all expect him to do so. That would be crazy, and that'd be another huge test for Moses Atama. This card could be rivaling the one we saw on February 22nd. It already sounds like it is. If everything comes to fruition, we've got something huge brewing. But as of right now, we've got Haney Norman, Benavidez Yarde, and Mason Noakes, with more to come, I'm sure. But man, it's another one of those times where Turkey's just putting together these mega cards. Like every month we get a mega card, and it's just so fun. It's such a great time for the sport, and I'm having a blast with it. Moving on from that, we've got some more crazy stuff to talk about. Just earlier today, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was arrested by ICE and is being deported back to Mexico. Now, at first when I saw this, I thought it didn't make any sense because obviously I don't want to get political, but we know that ICE has been going around and getting a lot of illegal immigrants and deporting them and such. But I was a bit confused because, it's been, 5 days removed, 5 days from the Jake Paul fight. He was just in the U.S. to do a fight, which is his job. He was working. He had, he was in a state-sanctioned event. Like it was very much legal. So I don't understand how you can deport somebody who's just coming over to do a job. He's just coming over here to work. And then I found out that he already had a warrant out for his arrest in Mexico, where he is affiliated with cartel stuff like human trafficking, I think, and like weapons and drugs and like all this crazy stuff. I'm like, whoa. Apparently, Senior also had some connections to the cartel in the past, but that was more just like a funny kind of joke thing, even though it was kind of legit. Not the case here with Junior, and he's being deported back to the U.S. and I don't know, maybe he faces jail time. It's boxing is a very crazy sport. Jake Paul afterwards tweeting Canelo is next, which I thought was pretty funny. I don't think the Canelo's in the cartel like that. But I don't know if at first I thought, it just means like he wants to fight Canelo next. I was like, oh wait, is he saying he wants to deport Canelo next? It's definitely pretty crazy that happened just a few days after. The big piece of controversy around this is that apparently ICE had enough to detain Chavez on June 27th, the day before the fight, and they waited until after the event. Now, the fact that they waited 6 days makes me think, okay, they weren't just waiting until after he had his fight, because they could have gotten him on Sunday or Monday. They waited until Thursday. So I don't think that I don't think that's the only thing that they're waiting on. But some people are a little bit upset, like, okay, so you let the event proceed and like did all this stuff. Like, shouldn't you be putting like the law first over entertainment? Which I do agree with. I'm obviously glad that the event still took place. But yeah, it would have been crazy if that had fallen through and we didn't get to see that fight. But especially for that reason. But I think that there's another reason why they waited, because they waited almost a week and didn't just wait 2 days after. But yeah, moving on from there, it was crazy. Speaking of Jake Paul, he has entered the cruiserweight rankings of the WBA. He's number 14, and it's crazy. We knew it was going to happen. The WBA said, yeah, we're going to rank him if he beats Chavez. He beat Chavez, so they stuck by their word and ranked him. It's up to you if you like this or not. I think that it's a little bit silly, because if you look at that top 15, I mean, does Jake Paul deserve to be within the top 15 of the world? No, he doesn't. But if you look at the top 15, look at some of the names in there. There's some guys that are like 3-0, 6-0 who haven't fought anyone, who have fought like only like 6-8 rounders. And he's just like so ridiculous. I'm like, I don't know if that's just the WBA, because cruiserweight is such a dead division. It really is. But listen, okay, if you give me the top 15 cruiserweights in the world, not just the WBA, but all of them, I don't think Jake Paul belongs in there. But if you look at the top 15 of the WBA, I think that he could be number 11 or 10. There's some weird names in there. What I would like next for Jake, now that he's got this ranking, is not to immediately get a shot at Zerto just because he has that belt. I would like him to fight another contender, prove that he's there, take one of those guys that I mentioned, is undefeated, young, doesn't have a lot of fights, hasn't had that much experience. You have more experience than them as a pro, you actually do, which is crazy. Fight them, get that win, and then if you can beat them even, and be like, look, I beat a world ranked contender. I fought someone who's young, who's my size, who's undefeated, and who's world ranked. What else do you want? I'm a real fighter. Do that, you get the respect, then you can get the world title shot, and you may not even have as many complaints. That's what I say you do. It wouldn't be as big of an event, and we know Jake Paul only really wants to do the mega events. He took a step back in 2023, 2024 to do those two fights with the Andre August and Ryan Borland. They were smaller cards. I think you do one more of those, get that fight under your belt, a little bit more experience, and then head into the big leagues and get a world title shot. But that's just me. We also got the announcement today, and this is just utterly silly, that the UFC are going to be at the White House in, I'm guessing, next year, as part of the 250th anniversary of the US of A. And Donald Trump, the president, just announced at a rally he had, I guess, that the UFC is going to be hosting an event on the White House grounds as part of that celebration. Now, was thinking earlier today that July 4th is going to be on a Saturday next year, so I'm guessing that would be it. He's saying they're going to make it a championship event, saying that he wants to have 25,000 people there. Now, I think championship is very possible. I'm guessing if they'll do a whole card there, I don't understand how you can put 25,000 people on the White House grounds. Maybe that's just him talking, as we know that he does. I don't think that really makes sense. And I don't know. Part of me is like, okay, this is pretty cool. This is pretty crazy that it's part of the, White House celebration. Obviously, just because Dana White and Donald Trump are friends, that, as part of the 250th anniversary, we're going to get a UFC event on the White House grounds. That is crazy. And then the other part of me is like, this is just utterly stupid. It's a little bit political. Not too much, because it is an American company and they are celebrating. So I guess it's fine in that regard. It's more so just that Dana White talks all this smack about circus events, and this is as circus as it gets. This is the same level of Times Square, So I'm a little bit surprised, but also not surprised, because, or more so just disappointed in Dana White not sticking to his integrity and doing the circus events as long as he gets money from Trump or Turkey and stuff, and following his allegiances more than his word. But who knows? It could be cool. Okay, now that we've gone through the big topics, we got a lot more to talk about, but we're going to talk about the fights that we got coming up this weekend. We do have two PFL events. There is a MENA, Middle East, North Africa event tomorrow, with the start of their tournaments the second half of their tournaments. And then you've also got the PFL Europe event in Brussels, where they're going to have some next to their tournament. Patrick Harbiroa is in the main event. I know I butchered that. So those events could be cool. They've got a lot of fights going. There's no UFC this weekend, so PFL is doubling up. Barely any boxing as well, because obviously it is July 4th. Not a lot of American events. Actually, no American events this week at all. But we do have one boxing event, a pretty big one in the UK, Manchester, and that is Jack Catterall versus Harlem Eubank. A fight that I don't think that we really think is going to be competitive at all, if I'm being honest. I think that Jack Catterall is going to box Eubank's head off. This is his first fight at welterweight. Also, first fight off of the loss to Arnold Barboza, so I'm fine with him taking this fight. But it's one that I definitely think he wins. Harlem Eubank is okay, but Jack Catterall is a world level fighter. Eubank isn't, so I think that Catterall finds a way to dominate this fight. I don't think he stops him, but he could. It's possible, but I think that he just takes him the distance and wins a very wide points decision, and that'll be that. But that's the only big fight we have this weekend. On the undercard, you've got Joe Cordina returning against Jared Gonzalez Quiroz. I'm not too familiar with him at all, so I'm guessing this should be a fight. Pretty straightforward fight for Joe Cordina to get back off of his loss. His opponent has never even been in a 10-round fight before. So this definitely should be something that Cordina should be able to handle. And obviously he's just getting his feet wet after being out for over a year after the big loss to Anthony Cacace. And then you've also got on the card Aqib Fiaz versus Alex Murphy. Alex Murphy coming off that great fight against Khalil Majid. Aqib Fiaz was meant to fight Michael Gomez Jr. on this bill. That didn't happen. So this should be a really, really fun fight. You got Pat Brown stepping up against Lewis Oakford. He should get another big win there. William Kroll is on this card. The return of Sky Nicholson. She fights Carla Camila Campos Gonzalez. Long name, but she's 9-3. Nicholson's first fight off of her world title defeat to Tiara Brown. So definitely a bounce back for her. It's an 8-rounder at super bantamweight. It sounds like she's not done at featherweight, but she's testing it out, seeing if 122 is better for her. I do like her and Ellie Scotney. That's a good fight. Obviously, it's a little bit harder to make now that Scotney jumped ship over to MVP and left Matchroom. But I'm excited to see Sky Nicholson back in the ring this weekend. You also have the pro debut of Leo Atang, which should be interesting, and hopefully it's a good one. Obviously, the last big heavyweight debut was Delicious Ori, and he left a little bit to be desired and then retired from boxing, which was just crazy. But yeah, Leo Tang, I expect him to have a good debut, and yeah, excited to see. Obviously, Matchroom had their big rebrand this weekend, or this whole week. It looks cool. I do kind of like them putting billboards across the UK saying like ordinary people, extraordinary talent. That's a cool kind of way of looking at it. The logo is a bit interesting. It's hard to tell that it's meant to be Matchroom Boxing like MB, but it does look cool. And they've got a whole new format for their press conferences. I'm guessing the weigh-in as well. It does look very sleek and very, and very different. But I'm kind of digging it because I do like the old Matchroom. The old design was just a little bit basic and simple and boring. This is not. This is much cooler. It's got a darker vibe, and yeah, I like it. But it should be a fun event this weekend. Matchroom versus Wasserman. And yeah, we're just gonna have to see where it goes. We did have a big upset this week as Jazza Dickens stopped Albert Badargaziev in the fourth round. I thought Badargaziev was gonna tune up Dickens the whole fight. He was very competitive from the start. Dickens figured him out and then hurt him in the fourth round bad. Obviously, Badargaziev's last fight, he got dropped twice in the opening round, so we knew he had the possibility to go down. And Dickens figured that out and just put it on him and stopped him in 4 rounds. Very impressive performance. He was a huge underdog. After being a big underdog against Zelfa Baron, he's on a great Indian summer here. He's now got the WBA interim world title. Obviously, the title, the holder of that whole title is Lamont Roach, who's about to fight Tank again for the lightweight belt. I mean, Jazza Dickens, as far as I'm concerned, is now the official WBA world champion at 130 pounds, just because Roach hasn't defended that belt in over a year and isn't looking to defend it until next year anyways. He could get stripped of it. We'll see if he does, but I mean, Dickens is a true interim champion, and he's just wild. That was a really, really class performance from him. I was not expecting that, and well done to him. And he's bringing a big belt back home. I'm wondering if he's going to get signed now because I don't think he was actually signed with anyone. I would be shocked if Matchroom didn't try and pick him up. They definitely should because he's on a great run. Huge upset. It was crazy. Ilya Topuria is now number 1 in the UFC pound-for-pound rankings, overtaking Islam Makhachev. I'm really surprised by that. I'm not mad. It does feel a little bit weird just because Ilya is having this great run and he hasn't actually beaten Islam. I didn't think Islam would go down at all until he retired or until he got beaten. And I got to wonder what Islam thinks about all this, because now all of a sudden he's number 2 and he's like, what? Whoa, why? He's not better than me. But Ilya is the star of the UFC now and he's now number 1 in the rankings. It's crazy, but I mean, he kind of deserves to be there. So well done to him. Also number 1 in the rankings now is Floyd Schofield with the WBA. Off of a huge win against Tevin Farmer. He's mandatory for Tank Davis now, and honestly, as he should be. I'm fine with that. Schofield, as far as I'm concerned, is a top 10 lightweight now, and I was unsure about him getting the title shot against Shakur earlier this year. Having seen him against Tevin Farmer, I think he's ready for that title shot, and maybe that's who Tank fights next in 2026. I would like to see that one happen. Liam Paro is signed with No Limit in Australia. So it seems he'd already signed with them for one fight, and now he's got a multi-year deal with them. So he's officially like left Matchroom, or really Matchroom's left him. I think that fits. He is Australian, and then the IBF subsequently ordered Liam Paro versus Lindolfo Delgado, and in a final eliminator for Richardson Hitchens' belt. Uh, Obviously, the IBF and most sanctioning bodies give their former champions or former title challengers another crack relatively quick, and Paro's going to get that by getting in this eliminator with Delgado. It's a good fight. I think Delgado's had two of his last two performances have been robberies. I think I don't think that he should have won some of his most recent fights, but he gets lucky decisions. I would favor Liam Paro here, but I do think Delgado's still a very good fighter, and it should be a good fight. And Paro gets through this, and he's going to get another shot at his title, and it's going to be a rematch with Hitchens, so that could get interesting. Nikita Zoo is also going to be back August 20th. No limit announced. We don't know who he's fighting yet. I'm very curious to see who that's going to be. If it's going to be anybody of note, even. But he's a pretty solid fighter, and he's definitely moving up the level. So they should be getting him into a decent fight soon. The IBF also ordered a final eliminator between Liam Wilson and Sultan Zauerbek. So Liam Wilson just continues to get title opportunities that I don't think that he really deserves, especially off of kind of like pointless wins. But you know what? Sultan Zauerbek, I'm very happy for him. He's been waiting for this title shot for forever with the WBA, the IBF, everyone, and he's finally going to get it against Liam Wilson. I think that he wins that fight very soundly. I think that he's a really, really good fighter, and I don't think that Liam Wilson is on his level. But Liam Wilson is definitely the bigger name, so we'll see what happens. I think that Zauerbek wins that fight, though, and then it's going to become mandatory for the champion, that being Sugar Nunez. So, and that would be a tremendous fight. We also have the announcement from Queensberry that Jack Rafferty will face Mark Chamberlain on August 23rd in Altrincham, I'm not sure how to say it, for the British and Commonwealth super lightweight titles. We heard wind of this fight potentially being on the Usyk Dubois undercard. That and no other fighter going to be on that undercard. This is going to have its own event, which I'm okay with. It is a really, really good fight. That's a 50-50. Mark Chamberlain was the guy before losing to Josh Padley at Wembley. Jack Rafferty's been on a really good run. He's been very active. He's had 3 great wins at domestic level in the past, just like year or so. And he's going to get the chance to headline at home against a solid name. This is a really, really 50-50 fight, and I can't wait for that. That's going to be great. Imam Katayev has also secured his visa, so he is now all set to go to face David Morrell. There was some worry about him being able to do so, but he's all set to go, and I think he's already in New York probably for the big fight next week. And yeah, Ring Magazine 3 is going to be a good one. Matchroom have signed Molly McCann, obviously former UFC fighter. She just retired after her last fight there in April or March. Now looking to go boxing. I know that she had a little bit of an amateur career, but no pro record. I'm really curious that Matchroom is getting into a crossover space a little bit. I know they're not going to start having YouTube fights and stuff, but it's interesting to me that they're signing a former UFC fighter in the same vein that MVP signed Holly Holm. Obviously, Holly Holm, a former boxing world champion, but she'd been out of the ring for a long time, similar to Molly McCann. And it's interesting that they're bringing her back in when I don't know how much McCann really has left to give, but we'll see. I don't know what her level is going to be at in the pro boxing world, but I'm excited to see. Chocolatito's next fight has been announced for Nicaragua. It's going to be September 12th against Hector Robles. I don't understand why these guys, lower weight guys, are not just retiring. And if they're going to keep fighting, just fight each other. Let's just see Chocolatito versus Donaire or Donaire versus Estrada. Like, there's some good fights to make with that old guard, but they don't need to be trying to fight the new guard anymore. Like, their time has passed. And I don't know, boxers just never know when to give up. We've also got the rumor of Michael Conlan returning to face Jack Bateson on September 5th in Dublin. I'm guessing this would be a Wasserman show. I think it would be Conlan's first fight in Dublin. I don't know what happened to the European title fight. We were hearing it's him versus Lorente. There's also the Josh Warrington fight that had been talked about or at least hoped for from Matchroom. I don't really know much about Bateson. Maybe this is a good fight. I don't know. It's just so weird. I feel like there was 2 better options on the table, and now neither of them have come through, and we're doing this now. So it's just very odd to me. We also have the announcement of Raul Rosas Jr. versus Rob Font, September 13th at UFC Noche. That's a really, really good fight for Rosas Jr. It's a tough one. Font is Font is ranked in the top 10, I think I want to say, at bantamweight. So there's a very much a step up for Rosas Jr. He wins this and he'll get into the rankings, and he's moving on from being prospect to contender if he wins this, and that's a big if. But that'll be a really really fun fight and good addition to that UFC Noche card. They're probably going to announce the whole card for that pretty soon. Speaking of announcing a whole card, PBC recently announced the entirety of the prelim show for their upcoming event, that being Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios. And that's going to be Gary Russell Jr. finally returning after 3.5 years out of the ring against Hugo Castaneda. David Picasso versus Kaionosuke Kameda, which is a really fun fight, but definitely one that I think that Picasso wins, but it should be fun. Obviously, before he gets his big fight against Inoue later this year. And then Mark Magsayo returning against Jorge Mata Cuellar. So, three really interesting and good fights on the undercard there. So, you're going to have a 7 total fight card broadcast by PBC. All interesting names, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Obviously, everybody's talking about Gary Russell Jr. returning. I am curious how that is going to go for him, if he even wins, because it's been so long out of the ring. But we'll see how much he has left. But I think he should probably just stay retired, if you ask me. And maybe that'll become much more apparent on July 19th. For the next PBC card, which still is yet to be announced, that of course being Gervonta Davis Lamont Roach 2 on August 16th. We're hearing that Frank Martin versus Rance's Barthélemy is going to be on that. Barthélemy, who the last time I remember fought Virgil Ortiz last year, and that was at 154 pounds. So is he now dropping down, 3 divisions to 135 to fight Frank Martin? That's a really, really weird fight. Maybe Martin's moving up to 140. Um, I know the Barthélemy is usually more of a welterweight, I believe. So I could see him maybe going down to 140. It's just really odd how far apart those divisions are. Yeah, it's a very odd fight, but it's good to see Frank Martin's coming back. I like him to fight an actual lightweight though, or an actual super lightweight, whatever division he's at. But I know he's not coming up to 154. Royston Barney Smith is unfortunately off of the July 26th card. Alois Jr. versus Elizoro has been added as co-main event. That's a really, really nice fight, I think. I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, Alois was looking to get the British title fight against Vidal Riley. They didn't want to do that. They wanted more time. So they got him another fight here against Elizoro, who is a very good test. Obviously, he had a world title shot against Jai Patai, came up short. Then he went to defend his British title. I think it was his against Chev Clark, lost that, and now he's gonna step back in and fight the great Alois Jr. In a fight that I think Alois will win. But again, he's become a test now for these guys. When just like 2 years ago he was the prospect, he was the contender, and now he's the litmus test. So it's crazy how the sport moves. Also in that card will be Carl Fail versus Amir Abu Baker, which is a undefeated versus undefeated fight that was also announced. So the July 26th card in Bournemouth looks like it'll be pretty good. BKFC announced they're going to have a champion summit or a state of the promotion press conference on July 10th hosted by Conor McGregor. That's going to be hilarious. They're going to have every single champion they have on stage, including Mike Perry. They also said lots of announcements to come with that. So hopefully we get a lot of fight announcements for the upcoming BKFC slate. And most importantly, we get a fight announcement on Mike Perry, because we haven't heard about him with anything besides his dirty boxing stuff since the Jake Paul loss in last July. We need him. We need another fight with him soon. But I'm excited to see that. That'll obviously be next week before their big card at the Hard Rock on July 12th. Omar Trinidad, his next fight has been announced for August 15th against Lorenzo Parra. Parra 23-1, I think was his record. So a decent fight, but Trinidad is ranked in all 4 of the top 10, top 15 for the sanctioning bodies at featherweight. I'd really like to see him get into a real fight, even like a title opportunity. I'm just so kind of like bored with all these no names he's fighting. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Parr's got more to bring to the table and I'm underestimating him. But I just want to see Trinidad really test it and get an actual fight. Same with Colin Walsh. They're just kind of treading water right now. Bo Nickel is going to be returning to wrestling and seemingly leaving the UFC. He signed with some big wrestling promotion I'm not really sure about. I don't follow wrestling at all. That is obviously his specialty. And he was talking about this big game in the UFC and then got finished by René de Ritter. It does suck if he got, obviously getting like TKO'd, if that really hurt his vision for the UFC and for competing in MMA, and he's like, I can't do this. I hope that he's not like, just afraid to ever compete in MMA again, because he was still pretty good. It's just you need to be well rounded. Maybe he felt he's not well rounded enough, but as of right now, he's leaving the UFC. It seems, which is crazy. Solomon Dakers is stepping in for Nowitzki to face Vladislav Serenko at Wembley Stadium. I'm not too familiar with Serenko. He's undefeated. He's obviously Ukrainian. He's meant to fight Nowitzki in a Ukrainian versus Ukrainian matchup. That's not going to happen anymore, and Solomon Dakers is stepping in on just a few weeks' notice. I'm not really sure about Serenko, so I don't know who I have winning this, but Dakers has not been too impressive to me. Obviously, he's coming off a huge loss to David Adelaide, so I would maybe pick Serenko in this fight, but we'll just have to see. That card is just, I think we've just accepted that it's only going to have like 4, 5, 6 fights on it. Two of the fights are going to be really small. We're only going to really have like a 4 fight main card, which is very disappointing. Very disappointing. Maybe they got one or two other ones they just haven't announced yet, but we're like 2 weeks out. It's really disappointing for a stadium card. MVP have announced public workout fights, similar to how Turkey's done for some of his events. So it is funny how they're copying them. They're really the only two things. It's MVP and Turkey Al Sheikh that do mega events, on Netflix and such, and that's crazy. Jake Paul and the Saudi Arabian Prince are the guys who do the biggest events in boxing, but they learn from each other. I think that the Netflix deal, and some of the promotion and production for that event was taken over by Turkey and implemented into his events, and MVP are now doing the same, where they're taking from their public workout fights. They're gonna have Crystal Rosado and Elise Soto, two of their young fighters, both in 4 3-minute round fights, fighting men's rules at the public workout in New York City. So that's pretty cool. I think that more big events should do that, and they should have decent prospects, because the public workout started out great with the Riyadh season events, where it was like the LA one was really solid, some like real fights on it. Then it was the London one, which was okay, had some okay fighters, but not great competition. And then the Saudi one just had a ton of no-name prospects on it, and like Chris Congo into the 6 rounder. It was so weird. So none of that, but hopefully we get some real solid fights. Like this. Like these are good prospects. Obviously, they're not fighting anybody of note, but if they can get really good prospects on these shows, I think that could be a really fun thing to do, especially free, open to the public. Could be a lot of fun. That's all I've got for this episode. A lot of news. We'll do another episode on Sunday or Monday, where we'll talk about the PFL events and the Manchester show with Jack Catterall, Harlem Eubank, because that's really the only big event this weekend. And then we'll get prepped for next week, which is going to be crazy. And then July 19th is going to be insane. It's going to be a really, really great month of boxing and UFC as well. So thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time. Happy 4th to the Americans out there, and peace out.